It is Thursday, and this is the Memory Show.
Basically, my father was investing in property, or I left school with one GCSE, so I failed terribly badly. And as we would do these jobs, sometimes we would go to these very extravagant and posh houses, and I would ask people, what do you do for a living? I made more money flipping a property and not spending that much time on it than I did working all year, killing myself 6 days a week. People will share their knowledge with you quite freely if you would but ask. They make it sound like it's so easy and you don't have to put any effort in, and then next you know you're a millionaire. That really isn't the case. Anything you want, especially to start off with, is hard work. There's so much information out there, and definitely do that before you even think about doing a course, in my opinion. But with anything, there is always a way.
Good evening, everybody. My guest that I'm going to have on, he's great. He knows what to do. And let me tell you something. He's not just somebody who I've just known about, or just read their book, or just someone told me about. I've known this person. You actually know someone that's actually made it. And it's good to hear from them the real steps and the process and what's involved, especially when my guest left school with one GCSE. Yes, one GCSE. Anyway, I'll stop waffling so he can just take over, but let's listen to some music first, and we'll be right back and we'll go straight to the interview. So we'll crack on with Stephen Malcolm with Glory on Me.
Hi everybody, we are now at the point of the show where we get to have a chat with someone to give us some advice, and it's all about housing and investments and things like that. Like I said in the beginning of the show, it is very important for us to share knowledge and learn, because buying houses, whether for ourselves or for our generations to come and invest in, is something that, even when you look at things biblically, is exactly what God wants us to be doing. It has never changed from the beginning of time, acquiring things, places for us to live in, for ourselves and for our family. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am here discussing with somebody who I'm going to introduce in a moment, who knows a thing or two about property. And I love his story because he didn't start the way you would think he would start. And so I'm going to let him talk all about that. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome to the Mary Show, Rory. Rory Palmer, how are you?
Mary, I'm very, very well. Thank you for having me, and it is a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And I would like to tell everybody, I didn't just find Rory somewhere. We actually go way back, because my brother is friends with Rory and has known him like almost all our lives. Isn't that so, Rory?
This is very true. Yes, Marshall was my first ever best friend at 4 years old, I believe it was, and we are still as thick as thieves today. And he's just one of the most loveliest people I've ever met, and I feel very privileged to know him.
We love it. We love it. We love it. Yes. And so, Edward, as I was saying, Rory does have a career actually within property, but it's more than just something like it's his career. He does have a desire and passion to actually share knowledge and help people, which I was talking about earlier. That is very important. So Rory, can you please let us know, how did you get into property? What's your background? How did it all start for you?
So I actually got involved in property as my father was buying property, and he ran a removals company in Feltham. Yeah. And I was working for my father as I left school with one GCSE, so I did very, very badly. And I was working as a removals man, lifting boxes all day long for not very much money. And as we would do these jobs, sometimes we would go to these very extravagant and posh houses, and I would ask people, what do you do for a living? And there was a very common theme that most of these people, or a lot of these people, were making money in property or storing their money in property. So the light bulb moment was going off quite frequently, and I said to my father, I really want to get into property. I want to buy something with you. I didn't have enough money to buy property on my own, so I did a joint venture with my father for my first deal, and we actually bought a property at auction. We did that property up, had to deal with builders for the first time at 18, and I was in charge of it all, which was a challenging experience, but one where I learnt a lot. But on that first deal, I made more money flipping a property and not spending that much time on it than I did working all year, killing myself 6 days a week, pumping furniture around for my father's company. So I felt very inspired then to get further into the property world and learn as much as I could about it. And that's exactly what I did.
Love that story. And Rory, I'm not sure if you're aware, on YouTube and even on TikTok, actually, there are people who are famous for doing that, which is asking people who live in these affluent homes, what do you do for a living? And I've watched a couple of them, and you are right. One of the sort of top 5, I would say, is always property. So back then, when you were 18, that desire to learn and want to know was a thing. You were really onto something then. I don't know. You were really, really onto something. But I like what you said.
Yeah, it was definitely a thing.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, asking. It's good, actually. To be fair, how else are you going to know? Especially if that's not your life. I like that interest to ask. What exactly do you do that you can afford these homes and you can afford this lifestyle? Is good to know and to find out. And you never know. Here you are.
Definitely. I think, I think definitely sometimes it's hard to ask people, what do you do? How do you do it? But you'll be surprised, as long as you're nice to people and you're grateful, people will share their knowledge with you quite freely if you would but ask.
Ooh, I like that. If you would but ask. And one thing I do like, you said you basically had a joint venture with your father. But I like that because he was passing something on to you that no doubt you can share to your generation to come and obviously other people. But I like that, you went to him and said, right, I want to do this. I want to get in. And he shared that knowledge, walked you through that process, let you take the reins, like you said, with the whole remodeling of the property. And now here you are. So that's essentially why we've got you on the show, because we want to know how to, and hopefully you're going to drop some knowledge for us. But some people may say, because some people have said, okay, that was back then. Now, 2023, we've just come through a pandemic, all these things that have never happened in people's lifetime before, unprecedented events. The Mayor of London's come out to say that the average price in the UK of property is 850,000. The expected salary of somebody living in London is 80,000. Cost of living is going up. So people are saying, so how is it possible to get into property? How are you going to do it? How?
Well, yes, and they're all the very, very good points as well, because it is crazy, the prices in London, especially reflective to what people are earning. The lots of, sometimes it's majority of their money is going on rent or mortgage, and I really do sympathise because that's not easy. But with anything, there is always a way. Perhaps you have to move a little bit further out. Perhaps you have to joint venture like I had to with someone else. I did it with my father. It could be a friend, another family member, someone else who, has money. You could borrow money from people and pay them a return if you're just looking for investment purposes.
Yeah.
So there is always a way. It's just sort of thinking about it and thinking, how do I make this happen? And as you ask that question over and over again, answers start coming to you.
Yeah, and I totally believe that, Roy, because you obviously don't know this because you don't live in Birmingham, you don't go to Ruach where we are at, but a lot has come out through like the church that I go to about property and this need to go out, and it's like almost like a release, like go ahead and do it. Like now is the right time, because it might not seem like the right time, but now is the time to really try and acquire. So we were like sort of how do I put it, commissioned, go out there and try and find to do these things. But then that leads to the question, because people are honestly going to go out there trying to look for, okay, what advice can I take now? How can I take what I've heard like in the church space or something like that about property and then go out to try and do it? And then they end up falling for, I'm going to say falling for, but signing up to these seminars and workshops that are free when you step in, or just £1 to learn all about property, and they're promised all this stuff. But then to actually do it, the materials that they'll need, all the follow-on stuff, the upsell is like thousands and thousands of pounds. And they're promising people that, oh, with nothing you can make money, but buy my course and buy my £20,000 this. Do you know about all these things? And what do you have to say about all of this?
Yes, I have heard of some of these. I've been to different things myself as well to see with my own eyes. And to be honest with you, a lot of them don't like the high pressure sales. I don't like the way they make it sound like it's so easy and you don't have to put any effort in. And then next you know, you're a millionaire. That really isn't the case. Anything you want, especially to start off with, is hard work. You need to hustle. You need to push. And they sort of sugarcoat over that a little bit. There are some seminars that are good, I'm sure teach great stuff, but all the information is out there for free. We've got fantastic podcasts, YouTube channels. You can buy, low cost stuff like books, and just going to property networking events. It could cost you about £20 to go to a networking event, and you go be around other great minds that are all interested in property. And I would say definitely starting off with, that's the way to go, especially if you don't have much money to start with. It might change if you're a multi-millionaire and you can afford, there's some of these crazy fees that some of the companies charge and you just want to fast track yourself, then maybe that's different. But if you haven't got much money to start, educate yourself for free. There's so much information out there, and definitely do that before you even think about doing a course, in my opinion. You don't have to. You can do it all without that. I haven't done courses and I've done very well.
I like that. And talking about something that you have done, though, is you have written a book.
I have indeed, yes.
Tell us all about this book, Rory. Tell us all about it.
So the book is called Financial Freedom Through Property, and it's basically a very easy read. You can read it within 90 minutes, so you don't have to be an avid reader to read this book. And I've sort of taken out all the fluff, and I'm educating people through the things I've done well and also the things I haven't done well, because both can be learned from, the good and the bad. And just giving all points and tips to anyone that wants to get started, and just to try to simplify it down as much as possible and really give some really great nuggets of information that I've learned over the last 20 years of being involved in property.
What's it called, and where can our listeners, because I'm sure some of them, because they ask me the amount of calls I get, because I shared this on a previous show how obviously I love property as well, and some of the mistakes I've made, and I've been inundated with calls and things like that. But guys, I haven't written a book. I've written a children's book, but not a book on obviously property and stuff. But Rory has, and please tell them, where can they purchase this book from? And what's the name of the book again? And your name again, one more time.
You can purchase it from Amazon, and the book is Financial Freedom Through Property, and my full name is Rory Palmer.
Fantastic. And for those who are listening on YouTube, there will definitely be a link but in the description, and we'll put it there. You can click and get the book. But Rory, can you share with us something from the book that could probably entice you to purchase it, but something that's in there that you're willing to give to us, the listeners of the Mary Marie Show, something you're willing to share with us for free, please?
There is many, many things that are springing into my mind here, and it's very, very hard to pick one, but I would recommend people use leverage. Leverage is a very, very powerful tool when it comes to property. You don't have to buy a property for cash outright. Use the bank's money and use leverage in your favour with good debt. And there is a big difference between good and bad debt. So that is a big one. But also belief in yourself and having the confidence and courage to go for it. Because if you don't have that, you'll just never get started. And there is a section in the book about mindset, as that is actually just as important as the strategies themselves.
Oh, I really love that. I love that. This book seems really good. But I want to push on the book a bit and just ask a couple of questions, actually, because something's just come to mind. Within property, obviously, there's different ways you can get into property. Like you said, there's joint ventures. There's a lot of things that people ask me about, rent to rent and things like that. Do you cover things like that in there, or is it purely just about purchasing properties for investment purposes?
I talk about lots of different strategies in the book, and rent to rent is in there as well. So yeah, lots of different strategies. There are different ways, and not every strategy is right for everyone. Depends on your situation, where you're at, and I talk about that, and I talk about the pros and the cons to each strategy, because each one does come with pros and cons, and it's up to you to sort of pick what is right for you, and you can't be a master of them all. So first of all, focus on one, master that, and only then really should you start switching over to another strategy, in my opinion.
I like that, actually. Focusing on one thing that actually works, because it doesn't all work for everybody else. And I've only stayed within renting and buying and flipping because that's all I know. I don't know anything about necessarily rent to rent or some of the other ways that are out there. Because I know some people like to build properties for supported living and different things. But I like that you said, look at the pros and cons, pick the one that's right for you and master it. Mastering is very good. I love that. And I just want to touch back in before I ask you the last question about believing in yourself, because just to go back to it a second, because you said you left school with just one GCSE, and it's very difficult to think, right, here I am, I've left school and I'm working for my father as a labourer. You can, I mean, to think your mindset, how do you shift from that to believe that, no, actually, I can do this? Can you just talk a little bit about that transition from what you experienced? Just because I think it's important to actually talk about that. It's just something I'm feeling we should talk about.
Yeah, I agree, and I just think it's such an important thing, because obviously I left school with one GCSE, so the future wasn't probably looking massively bright in some ways, and I was then, working all day, very hard, lifting furniture for a living for relatively low pay, and I was sort of thinking that, this was 17. Wow, this is my life now. But I thought, no, there's got to be a better way. And I just kept on asking questions, speaking to people. And then I really got into personal development and my mindset and building more confidence and belief. And as I kept on focusing on that, and I used to listen to audio tapes as I used to drive around in my car about mindset and belief and having, encouraging to go for things. And slowly but surely, I just felt myself wanting to push more and try and expand my horizons. And I really feel that was probably more important than all the property strategies, etc. Just believing in myself and going for it, because then I wanted to learn about more different things and constantly evolve into a new person, because, we can all evolve, we can all change. Yeah. And like I say, I was very uneducated, but my real education really started when I left school. And that has been vital for me, and I'm very grateful I got into that, because if I would just carried on doing what I was doing, I'd have a very bad back now and bad knees from lifting furniture all day long.
That is so true. That is so true. And I think in terms of advice, I was going to obviously ask for advice. I think it was good to kind of end on this, because it is so true. You have to believe in yourself and believe you can do that. And you have the ability and tools around you to evolve in your mind, evolve on who you are, and create a new career path for yourself. And it's out there. And this book, especially for those who are interested in property, so you don't go make silly mistakes like I did. And but you can actually change your life for the positive. Any last words from you, Rory? Any sort of advice for anybody who wants to get into it, into property? Any last advice for them?
Yes. So many things. I'd just say start now. Start where you are. Even if you can't afford a property, just get learning. Start reading books. Start educating yourself. Start putting yourself in the right environment where other people are involved with property, and you'll be surprised. Things just start coming your way. The more you put yourself out there, things just come back to you. And educate yourself. And you'll be amazed with a longer time frame what you can do. Everyone sort of always overestimates what they can do in a month, 6 months, but over a 10-year period, you can literally transform your life. And speaking to my 17-year-old self, looking back then to now, I would not have thought what I've done would be possible. but it is possible.
It really, really is. That's a lovely way to end. And I'll say this. We talked about London being extortionate, but guys, if you step outside of that city and look at other cities and look at other opportunities within property in the country, it can make it happen. And I like that you said over a 10-year period, because you talked about obviously investment, how long you have to hold on to. It's an investment to hold on to it. And I've seen in my life how property has been the strongest financial investment for me, that has again given me a scope to do what I do now and live where I live now. So as Rory said, start now. Great stuff. So that was the interview. Rory, thank you so much for being on the Mary Mou Show. It was great having you. So once again, everybody, you search for Rory Palmer on Amazon, and the book was Steps to Financial Freedom. Am I correct?
It was Financial Freedom Through Property.
That's it. Financial Freedom Through Property. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Mary Mou Show. My name's Mary Mou, and I'm here every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. So pop me on your diary for next week. Because next week's going to be good, just like this one and the last and the last and the last. For those of you who just tuned in, I'm so sorry for you, because we've missed a really good show. You've missed an interview. We've been talking to Rory Palmer. He is the author of the book Financial Freedom Through Property, and he was able to talk to us about the story behind the book, really, how he was able to get to have a property empire. And I mentioned that I personally know him because sometimes it's good to hear from people who are unreachable and who, well, they can come or seem unreachable, like that person. But when it's somebody you're like, I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've seen it. And I like the question I asked him about going from the changing the mindset from knowing that you only have one GCSE, and your future doesn't look great. It looks like you're going to be a labourer all your life, just, hauling furniture around the place, to actually going to build an actual a good career, wealth from property. And people like that, I'm always keen to hear from them. For those of you who just tuned in, for those of you listening, remember I started off with that scripture in Jeremiah 29, where there was an instruction to go out and go and do these things. Dip your toes in the water. Take a stride. Just try and see if it works. So it might not work for you. There's other things, and trust me, there's other things you can do. This has been quite solid for me, and I'm going to bring in other people as well, actually, on the show who is going to be talking to us about other things and other ways, so we can all grow. We can all improve our lives. And for me, like I said, the reason why I wanted to talk about this, and Rory was the right person at the right time to speak to, because I've seen it, how it's worked in my life. And so, I said I've given my time to encourage people, and this is no different. This is no different. So I hope you really loved it, and I hope you really you gained something. Go and get the book, guys. This is Financial Freedom Through Property. And